Hey everyone, Dr. Leah here with another episode of Vet It Out. I know y'all are waking up every day looking at social media and scrolling through your phones and realizing you just got a whole new fresh hell, and we're all kind of struggling with mental health. So today we have Jana Wu, who is a licensed clinical social worker, who is the director of clinical integration at Mountainside Treatment Center. And she was kind enough to have me on her podcast, Sober Spill, where we talked about the mental health crisis in veterinary medicine. And I think we just had too much else to talk about. So thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me over. It's beautiful to be here on a Sunday. We had you on the Sober Spill, and there was so much that I learned. And I feel like since then, too, it's been so nice to reconnect with you because since talking to you, it's like I feel like I'm seeing different elements of some of the things we talked about, different elements of where people are struggling, particularly with some of the online bullying that we talked about. So we can get into that, but it's really nice not to be scrolling and to be sitting here in real life with you, like drinking a cup of tea, here with Kali the dog, and in person. It's so important.
Yes. Well, welcome to our studio, which this is a rental property that I have because I lost my house in a divorce, and I just trying to find a place to live with all my critters. And this unfinished basement, I was like, we're gonna Wayne's World style this. We are gonna do the best that we can.
Really good though. It looks so good.
Yeah, and that's from our generation, Wayne's World.
Yeah. Tia Carrera. Absolutely.
So I thought it would be great to talk about a little bit, first of all, how we know each other. We are blessed to be from a really small town, close-knit community called Litchfield, Connecticut. And we grew up, our siblings, so you're one of four.
I'm the oldest of four, and then we have foster siblings, too. So I graduated in 96. Mm-hmm. So, Litchfield, Connecticut, it's been like a population of 8,000 approximately.
Consistently.
For over 40, 50 years, so it is a small community. Mm-hmm. When did you graduate?
I graduated in 2000.
Oh, okay. So
and I'm the youngest of four. So all of our siblings, we all grew up together.
So I know your older siblings, definitely.
And I know your younger ones.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's a special community. And I feel like we were talking before with Litchfield, it feels like everyone is like 1 degree of separation max because it is so small. And no matter where you move, I know you went to school out west. You were in Colorado. Yes. I was out in Colorado for a few years. But it's like if you're from Litchfield, it's like you're an alum of like the town, where you're always connected in some way.
And why I think this is super important that we are reconnecting because we are both healthcare professionals. And when you are putting yourself out there to the world, I mean, we're opening ourselves up to a lot of cyberbullying attacks and scrutiny. And I feel a sense of confidence subjecting myself to that because we did grow up in a community where people do know us and the type of people we are and where our hearts are, our level of commitment to our professions. And so we've got kind of like a fan club and some backing. Yeah. So if somebody does come at us and question our integrity and what we're trying to accomplish, then being from a small community, you do feel that support.
Absolutely. And I think we still support each other in so many different ways. Is it okay to mention the Truth and Healing that we had in November?
Absolutely.
So we had an incredible event on November 1st in Litchfield called for Truth and Healing in regards to a coach that had sexually abused boys for decades.
One of your coaches.
Yeah, I ran. Did you swim?
I ran and swam with Dave Driscoll.
Yeah, and it was pretty horrific. And what's just so strange still is that there was so much knowledge in the town, and the blinders were on so high, and just this blind awareness. It was really weird, being aware but not wanting to see so desperately. And one of the positives I think right now is that people want to see. They want to see the ugly, not just the good.
People want the truth.
They want the truth, exactly.
And that's what we're trying to accomplish with both of our professions, with this podcast, with yours.
Yeah.
I don't understand the facade, the mask that people wear. And I remember I was in 4th grade when I started training with that coach, and he never, there's no history of him assaulting any young girls. It was specifically boys. And I remember when everything went down and there was reports, these allegations that he might have been inappropriate with other boys, I looked to the adults in my community for the answer and how they were responding and how they were treating it. And there were adults who were sweeping it under the rug and acting like it didn't happen. And he was still sitting in town at his favorite bar.
Yep, celebrated.
And so I assumed, because the adults didn't take the lead, that he was innocent. And we subjected more children to this predator. And I can't tell you enough. Like, I'm so dedicated to seeking the truth and being honest and exposing that, because I think part of why we have this mental health crisis in this country is we're not being equipped for reality.
Absolutely.
And then it shocks you.
It shocks you. And I think, too, it takes a lot of vulnerability and so much bravery. Like, I'm so proud of the men that spoke up. Both,
Yes.
the men that were abused and then the men that were witnessed it and came back to Litchfield. Some of them that hadn't been there in decades and came back, was around the town green and said it out loud.
Mm-hmm.
And and seeing now the town, like, since that happened, so I did speak there too. I like talked a little bit to the parents, in the community, because I think there was so much shame and blame, of like, in the whole situation. But we were really trained too, like you said, not to question, not to see the truth.
We look to the leaders and the adults because we were children.
So those guys, they're incredible. And I think, again, going back to the positive, just seeing the community support, the people that have rallied behind them and supported them, and not without, like we sort of can talk about later, not without some online backlash, unfortunately, but like they didn't have to come back. They didn't have to say anything out loud.
It's brave what they've done, and transparency is so important, especially living in this world that we have access to information at our fingertips 24/7. Our brains are just constantly being flooded. And I don't think we as humans were designed to be this overstimulated and this overwhelmed constantly.
Absolutely not, especially not when we first wake up and when we go to bed.
Yeah. And then what's true? What's reality? What's being inflated? What's, who's faking it? While they're really struggling, and how that affects us when we're seeing these images of, like our perfect little picturesque town, and horrific things happened to innocent children there. Again, I'm grateful that we have this small town connection and support from our community, but it is.
Well, that's what, again, like that support, the people that did come out, the people that chose to reach out, the people that continue to talk about it. And I mean, I think it extends more to, like, I've been so grateful you've been so supportive to me through my brother's cancer. And it's like, that's the type of stuff that I don't know if it would happen in bigger communities, but it's like, we don't even have to almost stay so close to someone to really care about them. And that's how I feel too with, other people in the town, just like this closeness of knowing we grew up together. And so anyways, I think our town is very special. It is very picturesque, like for those of you that don't know Litchfield, this is arguable, but I believe it is the first law school in America, Tapping Reed.
Yes.
And it's really beautiful, and you can do free tours there. We have a Litchfield Historical Society. We have the Litchfield
White Memorial.
Yes, White Memorial. We have White Memorial's gorgeous.
Yes. We're going to be filming with White Memorial because they're trying to raise some money for their bird aviary.
I hope they can raise some money. I mean, I used to take my kids
We're
there.
going to be hitting y'all up for money, by the way. Support the birds.
But it's a really special, special place. And
it is.
So many new people are there now, too, despite the population not really growing. And I think it's cool. At least when I go back, I feel like an integration.
Yeah.
Like, I've made friends with people that have moved there since I've left in the past, 30 years, and it still has, like, that small town feel.
And with that small town feel, we both decided to go into healthcare.
I know.
Which is really cool. A little different tracks of me being a veterinarian, but what made you want to do social work and therapy?
Yeah,
counseling.
I didn't expect that I would. When I look back, I think of like junior high. I think of I don't know if you remember Mr. Conklin.
Yes.
Our science teacher. I remember he was also our tennis coach. It was dual roles. Yes. He was a safe guy. But I felt like safe. Like he didn't feel like, I don't know, it was any weird way. But I remember telling him, and being young and wanting to be like Oprah. That's what I wanted to be. And Sally Jesse Raphael. That's what I wanted. So social work came later in life. I went to college. I went to Emerson for communications, actually, and then transferred to UMass, moved to the city, and I started working at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. And I worked on the 18th floor and then neurosurgery floor, and it was for primary brain tumors, and it was so heavy.
Oh my goodness.
It was incredibly heavy work, but I actually remember so many of the patients that came, because I was sort of like a patient liaison where you help their families schedule things to do during their treatments, and I loved the connection with the families. That's what I remember, just sitting. I can literally, this is pre 9/11. I can remember sitting with people and remember their faces and trying to find a movie or Broadway play while their husband's dying, and it was this very intense time to just sit with someone though. and you became friendly. I mean, a lot of people flew there and they'd be there for months, and you developed like this relationship. So I knew I liked it, but the work was really heavy for me at like
high
21.
burnout.
Yeah. And so then I got this great job. I remember I was at a party in Brooklyn. This woman was talking about being a personal assistant, and I went and I interviewed, and I got this great job being an Upper East Side personal assistant. And I did that for almost a decade, and I loved my clients. It's a really interesting situation when you're in that kind of job. Like, it taught me a lot about like class, right? You know, we grew up in a pretty affluent community. I think undoubtedly Litchfield.
Yeah, we were pretty sheltered from the realities of other people's financial or socioeconomic status.
Yeah, it's a particular place, and Connecticut in general, you know, so like a lot of the world isn't even like just like Connecticut in general, although there are parts of, you know, extreme poverty in Connecticut too. But anyways, I was with like a different level of wealth, and I was helped, but never felt like it was a degraded position at all. I felt very supported and like cared for lack of a better word, for these families. And I loved the families. Like you, I grew up in a really big family, and I loved the kids of the people I worked for. I worked for one of them. I worked for the grandfather. One of the families I worked for, they had 4 kids, and kids are kids, regardless of how much money you have. If you're right off Park Avenue, like being with a bunch of teenagers and like helping their mom. And I had this unique role of helping sort of the head of the household, the woman of the household. And again, what I came back to that I loved, it was a very intimate relationship. I mean, really intimate.
Hard not to be when you are that entwined with somebody's lives, especially when you're going through really heavy emotional or traumatic experiences together.
Yeah, and just life. I mean, I learned a lot about marriage, a lot about parenting, about like the reality of having this beautiful, perfect exterior, and that like life is life, you know, and things are going to come up.
Yeah.
You know, so anyways, I, during that time, decided I wanted to do something different, and I didn't know what to do. And I had loved UMass and loved Northampton. And one of my girlfriends was like, apply to Smith School for Social Work. And I was like, okay. And I just did it. And actually, in between that, too, I forgot, while I was applying, I moved back to Litchfield. And I worked at a residential for adjudicated youth, Touchstone, which was so interesting. It was in the woods, and it was mostly inner city girls that had some legal consequences. And
kind of like we grew up with Connecticut Junior Republic right down the road. Yep.
Yeah. And so I loved these girls, and we did a lot of writing. We did creative writing with this woman, Sharon Shard, and went to Hotchkiss and did this writing exchange with the girls and did poetry readings with them. And that was amazing, like while I was getting into school. And then I got into school. And like, I never get bored of people. I'll never be bored of like talking to people. I think people are the most interesting thing for me, like people's stories. So
that's where we might differ.
I know. I was thinking that as you're saying that, like what you shared on animals.
I'm like people. I'm like getting anxiety thinking about them, and the reason being is I'm a raging empath, and so being around people, I tend to absorb their energy, whether I like it or not. And like I can walk into a room, and if everybody's laughing and having a good time, I'm like, okay. But if I go into a room and like somebody's crying or somebody gets a hold of me and starts telling me about their dog, I'm just like, I just need to go home. But the people I do connect with are people who are animal lovers. It kind of blows my mind that there's folks in this world who don't like animals. Which, very important, is different than somebody who doesn't have pets. Because I know some people who love animals so much that they choose not to have a pet because they're responsible and they know that their lifestyle isn't compatible with proper pet care. They're traveling, they're too busy, they're gone for long hours. I respect those people. But this is interesting because there is a lot of overlap and some intersections with what's happening with us professionally. So being a veterinarian, we are absolutely struggling with a mental health crisis. We have one of the highest suicide rates, higher for women than it is for men. I think it's 3.5 or 3.7%.
Yeah, it was like 2 to 3.5 times more likely to die by completed suicide than the average population of female veterinarians. I mean, that's extent. And then in general, too, it's like I think it's 3.4% of veterinarians, die by suicide. And that's a huge... It's
a staggering statistic when you think about how few of us there are. And then kind of going more into your wheelhouse, we also have one of the higher substance abuse.
Substance use disorders.
Yep, absolutely. And then divorces. You know, I mean, when you are dealing with this constant career pressure, you know, especially if, you know, I don't know if this happens to you, if you're out in public and people are stopping you or people are asking you questions, people are just kind of we're looking to kind of pick your brain for free.
Oh my gosh.
And
I think that happens with any career though. I realize that, I will say that happens because, as you know, I went to makeup school and it always cracks me up that a lot of the girls in my school were saying that too. I shouldn't say girls, young women in my school were saying that too, that all of a sudden when they went to school, everyone was asking them to do their makeup for free. And it's very laborious doing makeup.
Yes.
It is like,
yes.
I'm like, this isn't something 2 hours of your time for free. I'm like, ladies, you need to charge. You are worth it. Your time is worth it.
Your
you just
time
paid
is
for
valuable.
school. But so I think that does happen. Where people, I don't mind, people do reach out a lot. Like my husband's drinking too much or, hey, I think I may need detox. I actually love those calls because I think there still is so much stigma with substance use disorder that if someone is willing, and they want to open up and they know that I'm a safe place and I'm not going to tell anyone, I am so grateful that they do and they ask for help.
And they're looking for you to assist them with that. And that's the one thing is if people are just looking for free advice rather than asking for help and are willing to say,
right.
all right,
that's the difference.
There is a big difference.
Absolutely a huge difference than asking for labor because they're not asking me to be their therapist either. It's I don't know where to go
what
for
to
help.
do. I don't know what the next step is.
Exactly. That is so different than providing free services at a party or at the grocery store.
Exactly. Yeah. It's they're just being lazy and looking for a cheap alternative, or option. So, I mean, that can be a little bit overwhelming, but, the issue with substance abuse in veterinary medicine and just kind of what you're dealing with. So we have a mental health crisis. And I think a big cause of the mental health crisis in veterinary medicine is that everybody else is having a mental health crisis.
Absolutely.
And we have seen this increased emotional dependency on our pets
that is so
as the world is really upsetting and scary. I know for me, I'm very single and I'm lucky I've got some good friends and my family gets along, but my animals are my sanctuary. They are my solace. They are my escape from all the chaos in the world. They're always happy to see me. They always know how to read the room, when to be silly, when to be cuddly, when to be quiet, when to be loud. And so losing an animal, even though you know what you're getting into when you take them into your heart and home, they have a much shorter lifespan than we do. But I'm finding that people aren't handling it well now when their pet is sick.
Yeah.
It's very expensive, and then they die. And we have this innate problem with humans where we feel the need to place blame when something goes wrong. And so it's all interconnected.
Oh, I don't know why it's making you feel I was thinking too, just back to my brother, one of my fears when he was in treatment was I was like, God, please don't let anything happen to his cat,
He has a cat.
Oh my God. He has this beautiful, well, she's not that beautiful. She's like a stereotypical Siamese. Boo.
Oh.
She's very Siamese. I think she looks amazing. Not amazing. She's just thin.
She's thin.
Lithe.
She's lean.
She's lithe. My
She's
cat's a
supermodel.
chunker, Yeah. But I was that feeling too. I just kept on praying, please, just not now, boo, because she's ancient.
Yeah.
Don't, you gotta be here.
Yeah, hang on. We can't deal with this right now.
Deal with this now.
And so again, somebody who does counseling for a living and you are identifying in your own family, the human animal bond and how
huge.
Important it is.
That's what really keeps people out of treatment often.
Yes.
They don't want to go to detox or residential because they don't have someone that can take care of their pet.
Yes.
Especially dogs, it's really is an issue. And there are a few national organizations that do provide fostering.
Yeah, not enough.
Not enough because there's so many more people need detox or residential stay than there are available resources for people. And one thing I used to love, at Mountainside, one of the owners used to have a dog, Buzz, that we all love. Buzz was everywhere. Buzz was just buzzing around the whole campus.
Well named.
Yeah, he was. So I think about that a lot, how much people would just love when they saw him. Just
the
melt.
emotions that it would elicit from them. No matter what's going on in your day, it's kind of hard to be upset when a dog is wiggling and wagging its tail and heading over to give you some attention. It's one of those things that reminds you to just stop and appreciate these little moments. And animals are just so innocent and so happy and usually
wanting your attention.
Exactly. That's all they want from you is your company.
Yeah, just to connect. I mean, obviously not every animal, but the ones that are real social.
Yeah. But man, it makes you feel special when you have an animal that is a little bit more standoffish and they're like, yeah, okay, I'll allow you to pet me. I will come hang out with you for a little while.
That's how our childhood cat was so funny that everyone would always be like, we didn't even know you had a cat. And then people that grew up with me were like, of course, Marshy Wu, she was Oh my God, she was over 19. I was actually
That's
with
a
her when
good
she passed, but
run.
like
Oh.
she was from Circle Drive. If you're from Litchfield, Bantam,
Yeah.
she's from Circle
She has some
Drive.
street cred.
Yeah, she was. It was a really sad story. Like she was being abused by these little kids and
Oh, well,
our-
yeah.
yeah,
That
they were like,
that correlation
yeah.
between animal abuse and then what
Kids,
happens
yeah.
with as a human ages. If they're abusing animals, there's an increased likelihood that they're going to abuse a human.
Yeah. But my amazing, our nanny, Alice, who we love, she lived on Circle Drive, and she adopted Marshmallow, and then we had Marshmallow forever.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. But yes, you were right. So I worked with an amazing woman who had been through treatment, and I was there because I'm a hospice veterinarian to euthanize her cat. And just like when you were working with the people who had brain tumors, like it's impossible to not form an emotional connection with somebody when you're going through this really heavy, really dark, traumatic experience. And so I usually take my time. I don't like to be rushed when I go and help a family with end of life. And I was sitting on the floor with this woman her cat was geriatric as well, was about 17. And she was like, I'm just feeling so guilty. And I was like, why do you feel guilty? And she said, well, I, was an addict and a heavy drinker for years. And she was like, my life was going to be over. And my mom ended up taking my cat so I can go to rehab. And she was like, it took me a few attempts. She was like, I didn't have my cat for a couple of years. And she was like, but I did get out and I had her and I got to be with her at the end of her life. And she was like, but I feel guilty for missing everything. And I was like, I commend you for doing what you had to do to get well, because your cat might not have ever seen you again if you didn't stop and get treatment. And I was so grateful that her mother provided that home. So she wasn't going to hesitate, because she did say, she was like, I had this cat and a series of abusive boyfriends and I didn't really know what to do and I didn't want to leave the cat. And so because she had that opportunity for her mother to keep her, she got well.
And I think I just literally heard this on an addiction recovery podcast yesterday, but that people in recovery are better parents and animal providers, like when you get sober, than when you're actively using. Like you're just a better pet owner, a better parent when you get sober.
Yeah. Being a doctor, it's so important to be solution oriented, trying to get to the root of the problem and so we can actually fix it. And so people have asked me why I think we have a mental health crisis in veterinary medicine, what the most important cause that I think we actually can do something about, especially, is bullying. So a lot of people don't understand the level of dedication and how brutal it is going to veterinary school. I mean, it is it's difficult to get in. You're competing with the cream of the crop, brilliant people who've worked really hard. It's very labor intensive, a lot of upper division science classes. People are going through this, getting out to practice, and then facing the reality that your entire profession can get blown up in your face. Everything you've worked for over one bad review, one board complaint, and these potential witch hunts that happen as a result.
Well, I know, too, the board complaints can induce a lot of shame. I mean, it's there for, of course, like the checks and balances to have protections. But I know, as we talked about, people being such deep empaths and making a mistake, and a lot of people being perfectionist, like having that type of something on their history or their record can be so debilitating for some people that I think it can... that in and of itself. And then bullying, it's like 2 to 3 can cause like 2 to 3 times more rates of like PTSD, depression, anxiety, and suicidality definitely goes up with profound bullying. So it definitely has the weight and the consequences.
Absolutely. And I mean, kind of like this perfectionist, we take a vow to do no harm.
Yeah.
And so when I was going through veterinary school, I made the mistake of tracking a large animal, which meant that I didn't get as much exposure to small animal surgery. And my friend, who's the state fish vet in Colorado, actually did more spays and neuters in veterinary school than I did. So when I went out to start practicing, I had a really profound fear of making a mistake because I was inexperienced. I was undertrained. I hadn't put scalpel to tissue enough. And so whenever I did do any sort of surgeries, especially that were more invasive, like I was going into an abdominal cavity versus like cutting a tumor off a side, I spent my entire evening just wide awake in bed, stressing out, did I tie everything off okay? Like, is this animal potentially bleeding out? And I felt like I was playing God by doing surgery, which is kind of ironic because I'm a hospice veterinarian, and a lot of people think ending a life is more along the lines of playing God. But I'm not doing anything that could negatively impact the outcome that I'm trying to achieve when I'm doing euthanasia, usually, as long as my drug protocols go smoothly. But if my inexperience hurt a patient, I wouldn't have survived it. Like and that's why we're dealing with this. So then to go through that, and then when you're trying your best to do the right thing, and then the family is like goes online and just eviscerates
Blast
you. And then you get the call from your medical malpractice board saying that somebody filed a formal complaint, and the tailspin that can cause somebody who's so devoted to making a positive difference in the lives of animals it's devastating.
Well, and it's also part of, I think of our generation and our generations now of veterinarians. Older generations, maybe they have an angry patient, an angry client. They come, knock on the door, scream at them, yell at them. But now a bad review can be posted on other sites. It can actually have global implications.
Yes.
You could have people from very far away, not anywhere near your community.
No clue about what happened.
No one that you've ever treated, never treated any of their animals, blasting you because they read something online and they don't have the full picture. And some of it, I assume, too, would be under privacy. Like you can't probably describe what was going on in the home or other factors that maybe led to certain situations. I also think it's important what you said about putting scalpel to skin and how, as a surgeon, you don't really get it's a different kind of clinical practice and training to go in and be live, and it takes experience to build experience.
Correct.
And if you were feeling so much pressure always that it inhibited you from actually having those experiences, how could you ever progress in it because you cared so deeply?
Yeah, I was so worried about making a mistake, and that worry was coming from a place of me wanting to always do right by the patient. And if that meant giving it to a colleague who had a lot more surgical experience, my pride would never interfere with that whatsoever. That was where my fear was coming from. And then that was compounded by the fact that my senior year of veterinary school, we kind of had a legal consultation class. And this lawyer came in and said, well, kids, it's not a matter of if you're going to get reported to your boards, it's when. And at that time, the largest punitive damage against a veterinarian had been won, and it was in excess of like $30,000 for a cat. So it wasn't just what you would normally, if there was an egregious act of negligence, like true malpractice, then because pets are usually considered possessions, they're becoming there are areas that are labeling us as their guardians, and therefore they're sentient beings, which is going to cause a huge upheaval. I'm curious to see how it's all going to pan out. But, you're trying to do right by this animal and failing them, and something happens. Like, I have veterinarians who are very, very good colleagues. They're incredible surgeons. And when they make a mistake, like just seeing the aftermath of what it does and how we need this community support. And now people can experience something negative with their veterinarian or anybody really. And then there's no calm period to think about it, to gather your thoughts. Like, what really did happen before you would go and confront something? Like I said, like back in the day, veterinarians, like someone had to,
you'd have to
get in your car and drive to the clinic, pound on the door, find the vet.
If they weren't open, you couldn't yell at them,
Yeah,
and now it's like online's open. All that there's
instant
no boundaries.
Reactions are immortalized on the internet.
Yeah, and there's not
and
a
you can't take them back.
Yeah, and it's very difficult. And I would actually argue against getting into like an internet debate with anyone.
Yeah.
You're never gonna win.
Herd mentality. I mean, so in addition to the medical malpractice board complaints, which I've had colleagues who, even though they were very confident, their record keeping was good, they were doing the right thing, a client was unhappy and was able to start the process of a board complaint, which is usually drawn out over long periods of time. So you're just an absolute bucket of disaster, like trying to deal with this, like what's going to happen to my license, what's going to happen to my whole career. And I had a colleague who, I've actually never met her, but I ended up taking her job at a clinic in town. And everybody's like, oh, you remind me a lot of her. She was amazing. We miss her. And I found out what happened is there was a dog that had a mass that she removed because it was a possibility that it was cancer. And then it came back non-cancerous, but it was like an infected bug bite. But then the owner didn't follow the protocol of wearing the cone of shame. And the dog got to the incision. It was a lot of like damage and repeat surgeries. And she ended up suing the doctor because she said the surgery shouldn't have been done in the first place because it wasn't cancer. But in order to find out if it was or was not cancer, it had to be cut off and submitted. And that process of getting reported to the boards, which she did win the complaint, the veterinarian, she has never practiced again. And she was young. She was young and brilliant and likable and had excellent client communication skills. And because that owner couldn't accept her responsibility for her part and how everything played out and understand that the testing that was done was inconclusive as to whether or not her dog had cancer, and they had a very educated discussion about why we need to do the surgery, it didn't matter. She wanted that vet to die. Like, how unreasonable is that? Like, the rage, these unreasonable responses, and it's because of how much we love animals and this emotional weight that we place on them to help us feel good about ourselves and deal with our traumas. I mean, it's wild.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, like a lot of dependency. Like if they're not okay, I'm not going to be okay. Not going to be okay. Therapist was this incredible therapist I worked with for a long time, Mountainside, Bruce Decker, and he would always say, how empty of me to be so full of you. And we were talking often about like someone that loves someone that's struggling with addiction that couldn't stop obsessing over their addiction. But I see that a lot with social media. We know social media influencers, their self-esteem, like the statistics are really, I think, actually lower. Because I think it's like 65% of them feel that like their self-esteem is tied to their worth and they notice it go down when their views go down. I would say it's probably more.
Yeah.
But it's also that like over, I think it's like 62%, like significant burnout regularly. Yeah. They are burnt out because it's also not natural to be on so much.
Yeah.
To be on, to be public facing, to have that many people looking at you. I do think there's
judging
almost
you,
like
critiquing you.
But there's like an
bullying.
energy to it. And, you know, previous generations, not that many people saw you.
Yes.
And now there's, again, like a global sphere, no boundaries into how much you can be absorbed, how much people can reflect on you. And I think that energy does exist, you know, so I think there's a lot there. I think we've taught, you know, we're seeing a lot that influencers, like their name, have so much sway on public opinion. And I think that things can change. I actually am always pleased when we see someone that acknowledges, like, I've changed my mind. I've done more research.
Yes,
I see that
appreciate
this
that.
causes harm, or like I want to go back to something I said before and acknowledge I've changed. And I hope that we can, as a society, have grace for when people do get more information and they make an informed decision.
I appreciate that. And I think a really great point about that is we are facing this information and we don't know how to suss out which ones are valid. This is a reputable source. This is somebody I should be listening to. They are a professional. They're trained. They have credentials versus somebody who is just likes attention, really, and they're trying to make a career out of being online. And you know, especially in the natural health world, and how that is negatively impacting veterinary care and human health care, because people are like, well, I saw online, insert, and it's like, well, who said it?
Well, you have to spend so much time unpacking it too.
Yeah.
It's like the time that could be better spent probably like on the animal in front of you or something else. It's like unpacking.
Oh, it's a distraction from us focusing on care. Like I had animals that, you know, I would say, okay, they have arthritis. They should be on a good joint supplement. Here's a veterinary recommended one. And then I would get a 20-page email of like, I found all these other supplements that my Reiki practitioner recommended, and she thinks that the one you recommended is bad for dogs, and I just really want to be a little bit more natural about it. What do you think about all these brands? So she's asking me to go and research for her. Yeah. What she looked up is complete garbage, what might be dangerous, what might have like other compounds in the substance that are herbicides, pesticides.
All the things.
There's no government regulation of nutraceuticals. And it's like, it's like the amount of time I just wasted because you saw a pretty girl make a stupid video about why this joint supplement's bad. Like, meanwhile, there's hard scientific research and data behind the product that I recommended. Well, not because I'm getting a kickback.
Well, that is so important because I often get like, oh, you work for Big Pharma. I absolutely don't work for Big Pharma.
Yeah, me neither. I don't sell anything.
Exactly. I don't have a medical degree. I don't work for a pharmaceutical company. I do work in treatment. I am a therapist.
Yes.
And it's so interesting like that. I think people want to argue immediately to that, like, oh, you work for some Big Pharma.
Someone owns spins you like I'm a politician that's being sponsored. And so that was actually what gave me this position where I felt I could do this podcast, because I am just a hospice veterinarian. I do not do any general practice anymore. I've never owned a practice where I personally sold product. I've been an associate at one. So I cannot get accused of being in bed with Big Kibble or Big Pharma. And therefore, I'm hoping, and I've got this base. I've been out there pounding the pavement, working really hard in this community, and I have my reputation. And my reputation is honesty and integrity, and that it's always do no harm first. And so because of that, I'm hoping that when people are hearing all these like, oh, well, this might be bad or this might be good, that this is going to be a resource for information from somebody that you trust and that you know is not trying to sell you something else. So that's the biggest thing about social media influencers. If somebody is telling you, don't do this, don't use this product, don't believe Big Pharma or your vet or your doctor who's trying to get you to use this, but buy this supplement. This company does this amazing all natural organic product that was, found in the Amazon, and that should be a red flag for everybody. When you are hearing something online and that person is telling you don't like or follow or buy any of this stuff, buy mine. Yeah. That is the ultimate red flag of a snake oil salesman. That is.
But also like knowing what source you're going to for what.
Yes,
what in
correct.
This situation, because we can't be all things to all people.
Yes. So the greatest example in veterinary medicine of this happening are breeders.
Oh, I want to hear
about breeders. Purebred dog breeders, or people who are breeding crossbreeds that they want to claim are designer and purebred. It's a mutt, people. You just paid 10 grand for a mutt. So breeders now, especially ones that are in the show world and trying to make a living off of it, have these ridiculous contracts that they're making people sign. Like basically they're covering their butt if the pet has some genetic abnormality, or they come with worms because they're a dirty, nasty kennel, or you name it. And then they're also making recommendations now about what diet to feed the animal, about what vaccines they should be getting and what the vaccine schedule should look like, timing for spay and neuter. I had a client who had a beautiful golden retriever, and I met them because I had to very traumatically euthanize their last golden retriever. And their breeder, she would come in, and then I would say, I recommend X, Y, and Z. And then she would stand there and be like, no, because my breeder said X, Y, and Z. And I was like, are you going to take the opinion of somebody who just spent a decade going to school so we can take care of your dog, or somebody who literally makes a living off of dog sex and production of puppies? Like, who is the expert here? Who do you want to trust? But the breeder was just in her pocket. She had this ridiculous contract. And guess what? Like, the main thing was flea and tick products. And that dog had one of the highest Lyme titers I've ever seen.
So sad.
Because the breeder dissuaded them from using a reputable product. And so it's very, very frustrating. But when it comes to trying to make sure that we're finding the best in the bloodlines, like, sure, like, I'll go to a breeder and be like, yeah, this is, if a client really wants a good quality purebred animal, I'll go find the breeders that are doing their hip clearances, checking their eyes. Like, AKC doesn't mean anything to me. The American Kennel Club does not care about how an animal is made, under what environmental circumstances. All they care is that the dam and the sire, that they all have AKC bloodlines. And so people love to tell me, like, well, this is a good dog because it came from an AKC breeder. And I'm like, no, I've euthanized AKC animals at very young ages due to things that were in the bloodline. It's one of those things where stay in your lane is perfect. I appreciate that. So let's talk about how politics is interfering with healthcare in general, human and animal. I, again, talk about stay in your lane. There's a lot of discussion about things like vaccines. Right now, one of the most frustrating ones that we're dealing with is Lyme disease.
And is there a vaccine for Lyme disease?
So there's one that's Pfizer is trying to produce, and there's been a lot of online discussion and a lot of conspiracy theories coming off of that. People thinking that Lyme, which I actually did a little talk about how we found it in Otzi the Iceman when the permafrost started to recede. He had Borrelia bacteria, which is the spirochete bacteria that's Lyme, in his system. But then, we're having a very crazy tick season. There was a study done that found over 50% of adult ticks were carrying Lyme. And again, we're talking about Lyme. There's a lot of disgusting, really awful diseases that ticks carry. But people were more focused on like, oh, of course there's a lot of ticks and that everybody has Lyme because Pfizer's producing a vaccine, meaning that people truly do believe that Pfizer is breeding ticks that are infected with Lyme and dispersing them out into the environment rather than accepting the far more likely truth, which is we have a climate change problem.
Absolutely, and deforestation and less. There's so many reasons.
Yep, we're integrating with animals.
Yeah,
exactly. You know, those are very. I've been pulling ticks off of me and my animals my entire life. Have we seen an increase in the volume? Yes.
I know.
Have we seen things like Lyme disease spread across the country?
And have we seen that things work? I've sprayed my clothes with permethrin for years. We do our own like tick tubes, and it makes a significant difference because I still want to be able to go outside. I want to be able to go camping. I want to enjoy things, but I have to use some precautionary things such as permethrin, which people have mixed feelings about.
Correct.
But that has prevented at least my family from, knock on wood,
getting tick-borne illness.
Yeah, when we live in a very infested area where we have seen the rates go up and up and up as per the state, of rates of Lyme disease. So.
Yep. You bring up a great example. Anytime that we make a medical decision for ourselves or our animals, it's a weighing of risks and benefits. I don't love permethrin, but I also don't love babesia or anaplasmosis or ehrlichiosis or Lyme. Insert all the disgusting things ticks transmit. I also don't like euthanizing dogs that are 4, 5, 6 years old to end-stage kidney failure because they had Lyme disease because somebody told them that the flea and tick products that veterinarians are recommending that we're pushing poison. And it's like what we're doing is we're trying to keep your animal safe from a disease that's been around a lot longer than pharmaceutical companies were making bank off of human or veterinary medicine. And we're trying to protect them. And nothing breaks my heart more when somebody who we can't get through to them and then we see that animal suffering the consequences for not following the advice that we had given. And like that is, because you said you appreciate when somebody can recognize that they might have been wrong. They've been educated, they've learned, and hindsight is 20/20, and nothing is more upsetting to look back and say, my choices hurt my animal or my kid or me.
This potentially could have been prevented, but there's no perfect solution. Yes, it might not be a solution I like, but what is the best solution in this situation?
What are the risks?
What are the risks? Yeah. And, because I could choose not to go outside or not let my kids outside, but that's not worth it to me. I could choose never to go camping in Connecticut, but that's not worth it
Quality
to
of
me.
life balance. Yeah. So that's a big thing. It's really painful that there's a lack of trust in the medical community and the scientific community right now, more than ever. The only really advanced nation without universal health care. And it
makes a big difference.
Oh my
and
gosh.
People don't have the time or luxury often to go to therapy and get the support.
Yeah.
And I always say everyone deserves their one interrupted hour. When you think about that, having a whole week, if you could get 1 hour a week of uninterrupted in therapy, where you're just being supported, where someone is holding that mirror up to you, where you're getting a private space to say what's going on, an unbiased space, again, with someone that has experience, that can be profound. It can be profound for marriages. It can be profound for parents and children. If you can't afford therapy, I think there are other options depending on what, like, let's say, for example, substances. We know there are mutual aid groups like NA, OA, AA, all the different supports that are out there. There are other groups too. There's Dharma Recovery, which is a more Buddhist base. There's Smart Recovery. There's Celebrate Life. And these are all online. You can find these meetings online, and you can find in-person versions typically, except for, very, smaller places. But I think there's such an importance now to having a space to be vulnerable and be witnessed by other humans. I think it's often best in real life if we can have that, but the reality is maybe mobility issues or various reasons, money, people can't get out. There are ways to connect online to get that virtual support, which is so important, of having this space to get vulnerable, again, and bear witness, not to a chatbot, not to like an AI therapist, but you're a real human to listen to you.
So this is another really important point, is the stigma about seeking mental health care. There's still this old tough guy mentality. And I'm going to admit, one of the most important relationships of my life, I think, was negatively impacted over this person feeling like they were less of a man to go to a counselor, and that was kind of instilled with them and them by their dad.
Mm-hmm.
Like, guys don't talk about their feelings like this.
But
like
we're in a male mental health crisis, like a significant. I think at least women, like we know we've had mental health,
Yeah.
eating disorders. You know, women come.
I'm
with
loud
a lot
about my suicide
of-
ideation that I struggled with, and like all the depression, the anxiety, the sleepless nights. Like, I'm very vocal about it because I want people to not feel isolated and alone. People look at me and they're like, like,
You're
oh,
a
Dr.
doctor.
Leah,
Yeah.
and you don't have any kids and you're fun, and like I could be uglier, like I've got a lot going for me, and people want to look at me and assume that my life is like #blessed, and I'm like, I'm a struggle bus pretty much every day, and I've been loud about it, and people have reached out to me. I
And
was
responded
and said and
know.
thanked me
Yep.
for being
100%.
vulnerable and letting them know that I wasn't okay, because there are absolutely people who look at my life and think like, oh wow, it must be so nice, and I'm like,
But I think that's exactly what we can do, like in the system we currently have, which has a lot of inequity. We know that a lot of stigma and shame around mental health. The more we talk about things, like those are the small steps we can do. You know, I think that's something I've been doing for years too, is talking about substance use, because that's the waters I swim in every day. I'm not scared of it.
Yeah.
I love people that struggle. I love what I do so much. And that has allowed people then to reach out because they know
you're a safe space.
and that you're my people. You know, I want to be with you. I want to sit there and I want to be with you.
Yeah.
It's not a field you stay in if you don't love it. And I'm sure you're
Same.
similar too.
Yeah.
You can't stay in this field if you don't love it. So I think the other important thing is, like, if you do have health insurance, freaking use it. You know, we all
Yes.
work hard for our health insurance. So if you can use it, you can use it for therapy. You can use your out-of-network benefits. There are actually a lot of not as
right around Fort Collins is very saturated with veterinarians. It's, there's a lot of them. But then we have places that have veterinary deserts.
Yep.
There is nobody
Yep.
to help for hours of drives. And even I used to go to the vineyard, Martha's Vineyard, ever since I was a little kid. And that is actually a veterinary desert. Literally the presidential playground, so much big money, so much wealth. As far as like the properties out there,
people can't afford to live there. So
Correct.
it's like, yeah.
Yeah, so
when
the
you
people
talk
who
about
live
all the
there
debt,
year-round-
yeah, you can't afford. Yeah.
and a vet can't afford to live there
Yeah.
full time because they can't afford to buy a house and
Yeah.
practice and have. So this is something that's very serious. So now people are complaining that private equity, like, well, I don't get to see the same vet, and now it's all about greed, and we have all these like massive bills. And some of these companies, because of their corporate models, how they're setting their pricing. I have a great example since we grew up in Litchfield. So there is a hospital that I know of that is not in Litchfield. It's in one of the towns around it that have a lot of people on state aid and government assistance. They set the pricing for that hospital based on Litchfield proper.
Wow.
And so a rabies vaccine is like $85, where in that region, it should not be that high, because what they just did is now a bunch of people are going to be going to the vaccine clinic, and then the pet is not getting a full physical examination,
Yeah, they're
stuff
just
slipping
getting
through the
shot.
cracks.
Yeah.
They're just getting a quick and dirty poke and vaccine, and then you head out the door. And so now we're missing things, and then people are presenting to a veterinary hospital or one of these
And
big
much
expensive
bigger
emergency
price
clinics
risk. Yeah.
in a crisis that's going to be more expensive to handle. So, I mean, grateful that we do have insurance and programs like Husky and human medicine. But as you said, a lot of counseling, there's caps on it. And so like, then we have people who are looking for low cost or adjusted fees.
Well, and it's so much work to be in network. I mean, I do understand that. And going in network, we are in network. And there's really rigorous requirements as far as documentation, as you know, to be in network, to get reimbursement. Reimbursement can take a long time. So I understand why private practitioners, it can feel like too much. It can feel like too much of their time then is skewed towards the admin and not enough time with their patients. So a lot of people just, definitely a lot of really good therapists go the private practice route.
Yeah, and they don't take any insurance.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and it is so tough. So solution oriented, how do we fix this? How do we make this better? And so my opinion as far as what we do with the cost of care and the mental health crisis in vet med is, I think, first of all, we just need to keep educating people about what's really going on, where the anger is being directed, and how it's either hindering our progress and our ability to help animals, or creating more opportunity for these big corporations that now people are starting to realize aren't so great. Although I do have a lot of veterinary colleagues who do work corporate, and they're well cared for. It serves their place. There's great companies out there, just like there's not so great ones. And I will be all for any private equity company who is in vet med, who focuses on patient care and care of their staff.
Yep.
And that
is like the most important, trickle down for patient care is a well cared for staff. I mean, we do something I love where we get a wellness reimbursement. So you get a certain amount of money every month to spend on wellness. So that can be therapy, that can be a massage, that can be gym membership, that can be hair, which I love. I'm like, that is therapy. So it's like, I think it's just important of recognizing that, like, every month, take a pause, talk about it with your staff, definitely.
Yeah. So I think, are we heading towards the direction in veterinary medicine where we're going to need insurance? Yeah, and I think we're kind of there.
Yeah.
And already, because of the cost of care and everybody's freaking out about their financial status, insurance premiums for veterinary insurance are already jumping.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Because now they've caught on. They're like, oh, people are going to need us. And so it's just another opportunity for predatory pricing, and more people in between a patient and a doctor making a ton of money. And then that burden is put on the pet parent, or the mental burden is put on the veterinarian, because, as I said, financial euthanasia. There's people who are faced with either you go and take out another credit card or remortgage your house, or you skip a payment on your mortgage to save your animal, or you have to humanely euthanize them because you can't do anything, or relinquish them. And again, when you relinquish an animal, I just went through this. Because of that behavioral euthanasia situation, I spent the last 2 weeks of my life trying to find a home for a dog that I've never met before. And it was not easy. And I should be somebody with a lot of sway and a lot of favors that should be coming my way. And thankfully they did come through. But I was like, I just want to go drive off a cliff right now because I'm so stressed out and I don't know what to do and I don't know what the right solution is. And I was put in this ethical dilemma where, if this dog, if I'm like, no, I refuse to do a behavioral euthanasia, then what was going to happen to him? Yeah. I mean, this is every single day my colleagues are faced with something like this. And I can't stress enough. A lot of people are one bad work experience or complaint or case away from it being a tipping point, and they go home and they euthanize themselves, or they grab a bottle of alcohol, or they choose to open up their controlled substance box and use it to escape the pain they're in. And it's really scary. And when we're talking about what to do, this is for the veterinary community, for the general public. Everybody should be in counseling.
Yeah, 100%. And then too, like you mentioned, like hormones are so important. Like we know that every time we meet, we talk about them.
40-year-old woman. Oh my gosh.
But like it's so beautiful that there is this like cultural reckoning that, like, especially for women, they've been under-researched and underdiagnosed, undertreated. And so we're working on, I think we're coming to this place now where we're working on recognizing how much that affects our mental health, our hormonal fluctuations. And there's a lot you can do, of course, like on your own, like we talked about, weightlifting and different ways that we can change and manipulate the way we feel. I think of like oxytocin, and one of the best ways we can raise our oxytocin, it's not just through sex and breastfeeding, it's like petting a dog. If you like dogs, petting a cat. That raises our feel good. That raises our sense of security. So I sometimes think about that and talk to people that I'm working with about like manipulating your own system, like like trying to find ways that raise your dopamine without killing you and hurting you. Trying to raise ways again to connect with that oxytocin, to feel good, to feel a sense of security.
Yeah, honestly, sit down and think about what makes you feel good, what helps you get out of bed in the morning, and focus on that. Think about it. Increase your contact time with your friends or your family or nature or your animal. Identify your problem, what can help you feel better, and do something. Be solution oriented. And again, this is where if you have friends and family, colleagues who are struggling and suffering, talk to them about it. Ask them if they're okay, and don't accept like we all kind of want to be like, I'm fine. You don't have to be fine. Nobody's fine. Like we're not fine. Like it's okay.
Perfect. It's so true. It's just too
Take
short.
the mask off, drop the facade, and be vulnerable, because we're humans. And be a good friend and family member, and help people that you love identify their problems and work towards a solution. That's why we're doing this podcast. We're educating people. We're getting the word out. Like we need to make sure that everybody feels supported and that you're not alone. And then last but not least, just be kind. Be patient. Everybody is struggling right now. Literally everybody. And you have a chance to make somebody's day easier or harder based on how you behave and how you interact. And most important thing, us veterinarians, we are built for just handling disaster after disaster, stressor. Like, yeah, we're buried in debt, long hours, no work-life balance. But when somebody appreciates us, acknowledges the value in what we're doing, it makes it all worthwhile. That is literally it. Just be nice. We'll keep burning the midnight oil and trying to help animals, but don't come at us, and recognize that the consequences to your actions. You're killing veterinarians. You're reducing our numbers. You're creating more opportunity for big companies to come in and buy out private practices. Your actions are directly contributing to the problems that are facing our ability to care for animals. So be kind. Take a minute. Don't go online. Talk to management.
And I would say, yeah, along with that too, some of the important things too are remembering, like, we're not all going to agree. Like, how can we come together and like have a respectful conversation, or just not engage if you really disagree with someone. So not utilizing that emotional energy to attack someone else.
It costs 0 cents to stay in your lane, mind your own business, keep it to yourself. Yeah, but lashing out could end somebody else's life, literally. And that's what we're experiencing in vet med. So
thank you for doing what you're doing. And
thank
I'm so
you for
glad
doing what you're doing. I'm so glad this worked out. I feel like this was an important redo. I was a little nervous in my suit and at Mountainside when we were doing your podcast, Sober Spill. Yep, exactly.
Really good. You gotta listen to Dr. Leah on Sober Spill. You were very good.
Thank you. And you were amazing today. Welcome to Wayne's World Basement. I hope this was an interesting experience for you. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure we're going to stay in touch and keep learning and supporting each other and trying to change the world, one educational podcast at a time. Hey folks, Dr. Leah here. Thanks for watching my podcast, Vet It Out. For more content about everything animal, make sure you like and subscribe and hit that notification bell to have the latest updates.